Introducing a completely redesigned experience that you can sense. And that senses you. The new Dell Latitude laptops bring your work closer to you.
Tonight, Greg Lynn's story, the accused High Country killer's police interview played in the Supreme Court.
A brazen burglar uses a stolen uniform to pose as a police officer, brandishing a fake gun.
Pay rises for more than 2 million workers, 1 in 4 getting a boost within weeks.
A friend of slain Doncaster doctor Ash Gordon reveals her own family's home invasion terror.
The big health insurer offering free GP appointments for 1 million customers.
And AFL executive Kylie Rogers opens up on the emotional ride to become the new boss of the VRC.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Alicia Loxley and Tom Steinfort.
Good evening. Millions of Australian workers will receive a pay rise from July, the extra cash coinciding with tax cuts for every wage earner.
The Fair Work Commission also indicating it's now working on a plan to boost the pay packets of sectors dominated by women. Andrew Pobrin reports.
Shop assistants, cleaners, hospitality, healthcare and community workers, all to receive a pay packet boost.
To increase the national minimum wage and all modern award minimum wage rates by 3.75%.
The minimum hourly rate, currently $23.23, to increase to $24.10 from July 1st, taking the minimum weekly wage to just under $916, up $33, an above-inflation decision that'll see 2.6 million Australians on 121 different awards better off.
Any day working people go forward in terms of a real pay increase is a good day.
It will do little to take further inflationary pressure out of the economy, and that was our objective.
The Fair Work Commission indicating workers in highly feminised sectors like early childhood education, home care and disability workers, psychologists and the community sector will receive even higher pay rises next year.
We would have liked to see the Commission make an interim pay increase.
Well, I mean, how much longer are women expected to wait?
Although every worker will receive a tax cut from July 1 in the nick of time for many. The financial regulator finding almost half of Australians with debt have struggled to make repayments in the past 12 months, citing cost of living pressures, reduced income and unexpected expenses.
We want people to earn more and to keep more of what they earn. Right. And on July 1, both of those things will happen.
But what the Fair Work Commission and tax cuts deliver, the Reserve Bank can take away with higher interest rates, although Treasury still believes inflation will fall through the year. Andrew Probyn, 9 News.
A man posing as a police officer and carrying a fake gun has been arrested at a pub in Melbourne southeast. The 46-year-old is accused of breaking into a protective services officer's home and stealing his uniform. Crime reporter Gillian Lantouris.
Wearing the Victoria Police shield proudly on his shoulders. But it seems this man has no intention to serve and protect.
I just gave you the heebie-jeebies.
Police say Sean Mills broke into the home of a protective services officer in Melbourne East around 3 p.m. yesterday, stealing the member's uniform, including boots, shirts and a belt where he holstered a fake gun. The alleged thief walked off after being spooked by a resident. Locals Emma and Jim saw the man and say something was off.
Saw this guy sort of walking down the street with what appeared to be sort of like a fake police costume.
He was wearing like a costume of a police officer.
8 hours after the alleged burglary, Mr Mills, who has no fixed address, was spotted by neighbours walking along Warrigal and Castlebar Road with a gun, prompting a major police search. He wasn't found until officers were called to a pub in Oakley, making their arrest nearby.
He was just walking down the street. Yeah. He just looked agitated.
The 46-year-old faced court charged with burglary, theft, possessing an imitation firearm and a controlled weapon, as well as impersonating a PSO. Mr Mills cried and rambled over the judge as he faced court. His defence lawyer says he suffers from delusions and hallucinations. He was remanded and will have to undergo a mental health assessment. He'll front court again next week. Gillian Lantouris, 9 News.
The bones of a Geelong backpacker missing for 23 years have been found in the Blue Mountains. 24-year-old Kellyanne Carmichael checked out of her hostel in April 2001 and was never seen again. Police discovered her remains in bushland while on an unrelated search. The cause of her death is being investigated.
A young Warrandyte woman has spoken of her family's ordeal after a frightening home invasion at the hands of a young gang. As Lana Murphy reports, the victim is a friend of Ash Gordon, the doctor allegedly killed by teenage intruders.
They arrived in a pack, then swarmed the Warrandyte street. And it didn't take long for 7 children to steal 3 cars from one home.
Made me feel sick.
Medical scientist Millie was asleep, as were 6 other members of her family, when the teenagers broke in on May 15.
They had tried to open all the drawers, trying to look for the car keys. They had cut some of my cat's toys. It was just really terrifying to wake up to.
Her mind turned to her friend GP Ash Gordon, who was killed in Doncaster in January during an alleged robbery gone wrong.
That really triggered me, and it really rocked me, you know, like that's what could have happened again.
I hate to fathom if they had woken up during that whole ordeal.
Helen's ID, laptop, credit card and Subaru were also stolen. When her car was found, it was loaded with weapons, including a machete and tomahawk. 3 other homes were targeted in the same court, the group undeterred by lights and cameras. The Honda was spotted near Fountain Gate Shopping Centre a week later, but instead of stopping for police, the 2 teenagers inside allegedly rammed the car. They were arrested at the scene, but are now both free on bail.
They're unstoppable. You know, any part of Melbourne, they just keep, you know, reoffending.
4 teens have now been charged, including a 13-year-old Springvale boy and 16-year-old Doveton girl.
These kids are reoffending over and over again. What's the consequence?
Lana Murphy, 9 News.
Landlords will have to install ceiling insulation and more energy-efficient heating systems under new minimum standards to improve conditions for renters. State political reporter Heidi Murphy has the details.
Ari Casanova's got no complaints about the heating or cooling at the current rental, except
the electricity bill at the moment gets a bit high, up over 300 sometimes.
It's something the state is hoping to lower.
We're here to announce today the launch of consultation on some new minimum standards.
From October next year, there'd need to be ceiling insulation, weather seals, 3-star cooling systems, 4-star shower heads, plus blind cord anchors. And once a heater or hot water system conks out, it'll have to be replaced with an energy-efficient electric option.
We're looking at annual dollar savings on tenants' bills of around $330.
I think a lot of renters are really going to welcome this, and I commend it all.
Landlords, though, may take a less favourable view.
There's a feeling of disappointment and frustration at the continued changes.
The cost of these changes minor, according to the minister.
If you were to do everything. Which just doesn't happen, but if, let's just say, you did everything, it's around $5,000.
That's fairly conservative in terms of an estimate.
The government's own study on the proposals concedes landlords have been under increasing pressure for some time already, and that it is possible these new measures could mean there are fewer rentals on the market.
Right now, we need every single rental provider.
Heidi Murphy, 9 News.
Let's head live now to state political reporter Heidi Murphy at Spring Street. Heidi, the government's yet to commit to new rules for tobacco licensing.
Yeah, Tom, we're the only state that doesn't have a licensing system. It was first recommended more than 2 years ago now, well before the illegal tobacco wars broke out, sparking those 60 or so fire bombings that we've seen since March of last year. Now, in March of this year, the Premier did declare we would indeed bring in a licensing system. It's something that would help police and inspectors go in and close down dodgy operators. I asked the Minister for Consumer Affairs for an update today. All she could say was that there is some level of work being considered on it. Tom, no other information on where or when we might see the legislation, or even if any consultation has started as yet.
All right, Heidi Murphy there at State Parliament. Thank you.
Well, for the very first time, the jury in the High Country murder trial has heard from Greg Lynn as he was questioned at length after his arrest.
It's the explosive police interview that has never seen the light of day until now. Amber Johnston takes us through this extraordinary day of evidence.
Greg Lynn has been seen but never heard, and in that vacuum he's become somewhat of an enigma until now. It was wrong of me to hide those bodies like that. I should have just gone straight to police. I just wanted it to go away and just to move on and to never think about it again. The shock admissions coming 2 days after his arrest as he sat inside the Sal police station wrapped in a blanket. The 57-year-old questioned at length over the disappearance of Russell Hill and Carol Clay in Victoria's High Country, claiming there was a dispute over Mr Hill's drone. I asked him why he was using the drone and he said he didn't like deer hunting and that he had some video footage of me hunting close to the camp, and he said he was going to take those pictures to police, and I said this is ridiculous. With lead investigator Detective Sergeant Brett Florence on the other side of the table, Mr Lynn stood up and demonstrated how Mr Hill allegedly grabbed his hunting rifle, claiming Miss Clay was accidentally shot in the tussle and Mr Hill came at him with a knife which he fell on as they wrestled. From here, I panicked and thought, it's my shotgun, there's one person dead and he's dead as well now, I'm going to be found guilty of this. From there, he used a map to lay out the steps he took to cover up the deaths, admitting he burnt their campsite and drove hours away to dump their bodies in isolated bushland, returning to burn their remains. Even if I'd come to you with this evidence back in March 2020, it still would have been an absolute disaster. Not as bad as this now, but an absolute disaster. Throughout the interview, Mr Lynn's tone was calm and almost matter of fact, but as he spoke about his future, he broke down and started to cry. That's the truth and that's the best I can give you. It's not going to be much relief for the families. There's nothing to see, nothing to be found. I've just been trying to keep my head down and move on with my life, which has been hard, but I can't, and it's caught up with me. Leaving him to instead ponder his sobering reality. If found guilty of 2 murders, he'll spend much of the rest of his life in a jail cell. Amber Johnston, 9 News.
The family of a trainee nurse who was killed when a Sydney unit exploded has thanked emergency crews for their tireless efforts to find her body. Jasmine May was buried under the rubble of her mother's townhouse. An urgent investigation is underway to uncover how the tragedy occurred. Other residents raised concerns about smelling gas over the past year. Far-right Israeli ministers are threatening to dismantle Benjamin Netanyahu's government if he accepts a peace plan made public by the US president. Today, an Israeli foreign policy advisor claimed the framework deal needs a lot of work, but they will agree to it. Europe correspondent Brett McLeod.
The conflict in Gaza exposing a battle within Israel. Members of the ultra-Orthodox community forcibly removed by police as they protest moves to have their exemption from military service removed. But Benjamin Netanyahu has a bigger fight on his hands on another front within his government. It's over the 3-stage peace plan made public by US President Joe Biden that would see a ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces in Gaza and the return of all hostages or their bodies. One of Israel's far-right ministers, Itamar Ben-Gvir, says if Prime Minister Netanyahu continues to lead this deal, we will dismantle the government. But families of hostages went to the Prime Minister's home to make their feelings known.
I'm here to support my government in taking this deal.
Pressure too from the White House, saying if Hamas agrees to the deal, it expects Israel to also abide by it, given it was involved in its crafting.
Prime Minister Netanyahu's team, in fact, his foreign minister, again, just said that they welcome this announcement by the president and that they did, in fact, agree that this was their proposal.
Meantime, Israel's defence minister says he's preparing an alternative government to Hamas to rule Gaza. But holding his own government together may be a more immediate issue for Benjamin Netanyahu. In London, Brett McLeod, 9 News.
Josh Frydenberg has taken to social media to rule out a political comeback after speculation he could oust the female candidate running in Kooyong. The former Treasurer, who lost his seat at the last election, says he's not rushing back to politics and will continue to support Amelia Hamer. The majority of empty nesters aren't considering downsizing, according to new research.
Concerns about the economy are preventing older Australians from moving, and that is then causing problems to ripple through the housing market. Finance editor Chris Kohler explains.
Having too many bedrooms, that is not a problem for empty nesters. 4 out of 5 Australians over the age of 65 are not interested in downsizing to a smaller home. And fair enough, it's their call. But it means young families aren't moving into those bigger homes, and it also means retirees aren't getting a windfall of cash they can spend. And experts say it's down to bad policy settings.
Basically, any money you have tied up in the family home is exempt from the age pension eligibility rules. However, as soon as you release that equity and put it into another vehicle like superannuation or even the bank, you start to get penalised in terms of how much age pension you're eligible for.
So the push is to change those settings to make downsizing easier, because the research also shows older Australians want to help their kids in this tough economy. 20% say they'd accommodate their family, and many are. 15% say they would pay their bills. More than 1 in 10 would cut back on their spending, including holidays, but just 7% would sell their home and use some of the money to help their family. So it's well down the list because the financial hit is too big. And this research out today is designed to trigger some changes from state and federal decision makers.
One of the AFL's top executives, Kylie Rogers, will become the first female CEO of the Victorian Racing Club. And the new role couldn't have come at a better time as Rogers continues to deal with personal heartbreak. Tony Jones reports.
Like a classic Melbourne Cup, Kylie Rogers has come from nowhere to win one of Australian sport's most coveted jobs. This is yours.
This is mine.
Rogers arrives at the VRC after 7 years at the AFL, and telling footy boss Andrew Dillon of her departure was always going to be tough.
Yeah, Andrew is a dear friend of mine. The Commission are dear friends of mine and my fellow executive team, so it was like breaking out. But I've been there 7 years. And I was really ready to take on this new challenge, and he was fantastic.
Although she doesn't clock on until the start of September, Rogers already has a vision for this new challenge. It might just be a game changer.
I want the offering to be spectacular on and off the field, and that talks to entertainment, and it talks to music, and it talks to exquisite food and beverage opportunities.
And the VRC reckons it's already backed a winner.
The approach to how she thinks about things and her track record of delivering, and really I think a great fit for the culture of the VRC moving forward.
2024 has been an emotional rollercoaster for Kylie Rogers. In April, she lost her husband to cancer.
It's been a tough journey. You know, Andrew was suffering for 2.5 years, and so the pain's not new. And we are looking for our new normal now, and I'm really thrilled that being the CEO of the VRC can be part of my family's new normal.
This new job provides Kylie and her 3 sons the opportunity of a new chapter.
They're really excited for Mum. You know, they've grown up going to the races. We've been to Stakes Day since they've been kids. They've seen their mum and their dad enjoy the races all the time.
And the boys would certainly be proud of Mum if she could lock in a certain King Charles for Cup Day.
That's on the top of my list.
Is it?
It might be.
And given Kylie's track record, you wouldn't bet against it. Tony Jones, 9 News.
Well, if anyone will get that over the line, it'll be Kylie.
Yeah, lock it in. Chucky's coming. All right, thanks, guys. Coming up a little later in sport, boy, have we got some sport for you. The Eagles, they won't cop that 2-week ban. Harley is off to the tribunal. Trent Neese.
That's right, Tony. West Coast has confirmed they'll look to downgrade Harley Reid's ban to just 1 match. Plus, the AFL takes a stance on the Rising Star Award. I'll have more details in sport.
Talk to you then, Trent. Also tonight, it's actually happening. Ben and Harry playing against each other. We'll hear from both. A gun giant signs a mega extension. Big Max explains why he isn't worried about ladder positions. And is this a first? Mona getting a little testy?
We are just celebrating the athletes that we have here who are going to the Olympic Games in Paris to realise a dream. Enough said.
And Sinner's big moving day in Paris. I didn't think I would ever see the day that Steve Monaghetti would get angry. And I'll tell you in sport who was responsible for that.
Okay. Was it you?
Oh, why do you just assume me?
Jinx.
I mean, everyone was thinking it.
You'll be surprised.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you, Tony. We'll see you soon. Ahead in 9 News, free doctor's appointments, health insurers offering around-the-clock medical care without any extra costs.
A tragic end to a stunt at a popular air show.
And the moment a truck jackknifes before slamming into a pub and shops.
A truck driver has walked away from this smash, losing control of his rig and hitting a shopfront in Coffs Harbour. The B-double jackknifed, clipping a roadside hotel concrete planter box and then slamming into the front of shops, including a lawyer's office. Incredibly, the 25-year-old driver suffered only minor injuries.
Free GP visits and nurses on call are the new offerings of some of Australia's biggest private health insurance as they attempt to provide customers more value for their premiums. But consumer advocates say wealth shouldn't determine access to care, and the services are creating a two-tiered system. Stephanie Anderson explains.
When Ruth Bolster feared she was having a stroke on a Saturday morning, a Medibank magnet on her fridge became the first port of call.
I called the 24-hour nurse line and got a really lovely lady. She said, I think you need to go straight to hospital and you should not drive.
Ruth followed the advice and was diagnosed with a detachment in her eye. Now she's a big advocate of the phone service she tapped into, which Medibank has made accessible to every customer.
It can be on the nurse line anywhere from coughs and colds, stomach or chest pain or medications review.
Covering entry-level care is an increasing interest for the big insurers. At Bupa, 3 free virtual GP visits are being offered per year to around 1 million customers with extras cover.
We do worry and like to look for areas where we can provide value by providing these a set number of sessions with zero out of pocket. We're also supporting our members at a time where cost of living is high.
But the Bupa program is only a pilot and needed special approval from the Federal Health Department. That's because under current Australian law, private insurers can't cover out-of-hospital medical services like GP visits and some diagnostic testing. So consumer advocates say more moves like this run the risk of creating a two-tiered system.
I think Australians all want everyone to get a fair go with their healthcare and don't want these divides to deepen and continue to grow.
Stephanie Anderson, 9 News.
An air show in Portugal has ended in disaster when 2 stunt planes collided, killing one pilot and injuring the other. Horrified spectators watched the aircraft crash to the ground. The event was called off shortly after.
Well, a daring start to D-Day commemoration. 70 parachutists dressed in historic uniforms have jumped from World War II era planes in France's northwest. Many of the participants are former soldiers who will take part in multiple ceremonies this week to mark 80 years since the Allied troops launched their invasion of Normandy. All right, Livinia Nixon is here with us now with all the weather details, and it's been a cloudy start to the working week, Livinia.
Oh, it was, Alicia. It's been quite a dreary Monday, and it felt cool under southerly winds. The city dipped to 8.2 and it peaked at 14.6. While overnight showers delivered less than 1 millimetre across Melbourne, the state's far east was drenched. Mallacoota had more than a month's rain and had its wettest June day on record. Before 9 a.m, 112 millimetres had fallen in the gauge. Orbost recorded 51.47 at Combined Bar. And with a drop in temperatures, some light snow fell at our ski resorts. Mount Hotham waking to a fresh coating this morning. Tomorrow, the low-pressure system which delivered the wet weather will drift out over the Tasman, but it will continue to maintain a cool southerly airflow over us. And in true winter style, that will keep a lid on maximums. Details a little later in the bulletin, Tom.
All right, see you then. Thank you, Livinia. When we return, bouncing back, positive signs for Melbourne's property prices. The details next.
America's breaking point, Donald Trump's bold claims in his first sit-down interview since becoming a convicted felon.
And promising results for a new approach to treating melanoma and other cancers. Some good news for property owners in Melbourne. New data by CoreLogic revealing there's been a slight increase in home values over the past month, going up by 0.1%. However, Brisbane house values are now also higher than the median house value across Melbourne. That's for the first time since June 2008.
Former US President Donald Trump has given his first sit-down interview since his criminal conviction. He says Americans will not stand for him being sent to jail and it could push them to breaking point. But his opponents say he's only inciting violence. Here's Jonathan Kersley.
America's first convicted president returns home to Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump seemingly unfazed by what may lie ahead.
The judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It could.
Face what that could. I'm okay with it.
A prison term for his hush money conviction appears unlikely, but he's issuing a warning if he does get one.
I think it would be tough for the public to take. You know, at a certain point, there's a breaking point.
This is clearly Donald Trump once again inciting violence.
New polling shows the conviction has barely moved the needle in the minds of voters. 49% want him to end his campaign. That's hardly changed since the indictment last April. 40% say he's fit to be president. 51% say he's not. 89% of Republicans say he didn't get a fair trial, while well over 2/3 rate loyalty to the former president as very important. With Republicans and Democrats frantically fundraising ahead of the presidential election, Donald Trump's son Eric has claimed their side has reeled in more than 300 million Australian dollars since the conviction. A conviction the former president says is taking a toll on his family.
How's Melania doing with it? She's fine, but I think it's very hard for her. I mean, she's fine, but it's, you know, she has to read all this crap.
Facing 3 other trials and a run for the presidency, Donald Trump is fighting on.
My revenge will be success.
Americans will decide if he gets the White House. In the United States, Jonathan Kersley, 9 News.
One person has been killed and 8 others injured in the collapse of a 5-storey apartment in the Turkish city of Istanbul. Emergency services dug through the debris by hand, pulling multiple people from the rubble. As Turkey is prone to earthquakes, the incident has now sparked concerns about the structural integrity of other buildings.
A new approach to helping patients beat melanoma is being heralded as a revolution in cancer treatment. The same method now also showing promising results in patients with other cancers. Gabriella Rogers has the story.
When Matthew Croxford was told he had stage 3 melanoma, he feared the worst as his cancer had spread.
Am I going to die? I've got a wife and 2 children.
Before then, he didn't think much of the marble-sized lump on his collarbone until he got tested.
Professor Long and her team said to me that, 10, 15 years ago, this would have been a terminal diagnosis.
Australian of the Year Professor Georgina Long co-led an international trial to shake up standard protocols by giving immunotherapy before surgery. Of the 423 patients taking part, one group received usual treatment. That's surgery first, then a single immunotherapy drug. That order was flipped for the other group. 2 immunotherapy drugs first to shrink the tumour, then surgery.
With nearly only 10 months of follow-up, we saw a 68% reduction in the risk of recurrence or death from those who got the immunotherapy first.
Introducing immunotherapy earlier gave them more firepower.
We can train the immune system against the cancer, melanoma, better. Nearly 60% had an excellent response without many cancer cells left.
Matthew was part of that group.
The only side effect was a little bit of fatigue from time to time.
The next step is to seek regulatory approval to make this standard practice. There is also hope among experts that this novel approach could be applied to other types of cancer.
There's probably more cancers than we know that could possibly respond to this.
2 years on, Matthew remains cancer-free.
And I'm lucky because of the hard work they put in.
Gabriella Rogers, 9 News.
Still to come for you, Melbourne students tied up in a fake kidnapping scam.
A birthday treat for Ackland Street royalty celebrating 90 years.
And the wedding ring bearer who really was dressed for the occasion.
June trading kicked off with a positive day, but it could be a rocky month for investors. Finance editor Chris Kohler explains.
First day of a new month on the market, so not a bad time to check our progress for the year. So far, the ASX is up 170 points, pretty slow and steady. Massive gains from Alumina, and A2 Milk is up 67% this year. A strong set of earnings numbers back in February sparking a big run for that share price. But Strike Energy and Domino's Pizza are among the worst performers so far this year. Now, May is usually a flat month, and we did a bit better than the average this year. And over the last decade, June has averaged negative returns, so investors might have a rocky few weeks ahead. No worries today, though. The index up 56 points with the bank strong, while retailer Lovisa took a tumble. The Aussie dollar was down slightly, but we have some big items on the agenda this week. GDP data on Wednesday and interest rate decisions in Europe and Canada. All will have an impact on our currency.
International students are being targeted in a scam that's re-emerged, ordered to pay sums of up to $215,000 or face extradition back to their country. As it escalates, they are then told to fake their own kidnappings. Pictures like these are sent to their families and used to demand a ransom for their safe release. While many small businesses are doing it tough, a St Kilda favourite is this year celebrating a very sweet milestone. Monarch Cakes marking 90 years in the very same shop. Alan Rascal popped in for a visit.
It's been serving sweet treats in the same location for 9 decades. Monarch Cakes, a favourite with St Kilda locals and visitors alike. Cara, what did you have?
I had the plum cake.
What did you love about it?
Everything. It was the most beautiful, succulent, moist cake I've ever had.
So I don't know how to pronounce it, but it tastes good.
It does taste very good.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Monarch Cakes moved to its current premises in 1934 after it opened 3 years earlier in Carlton as the Monaco Cake Shop. A one-time customer, 85-year-old Gideon Markham, bought the business 27 years ago.
I used to get things which are still here, and I liked it, and it happened.
And what's your favourite pastries?
My favourite pastry would be, I'd say, the plum cake.
It's especially renowned for its Kugelhof, which is a traditional German yeast-based and almond meal cake. The business is a family affair, daughter Nikki Lasky and her kids also working there. Do you ever get sick of looking at cake?
No, somebody else asked me that today. Every day is like a new day. I come in and it's like the smell and the sugar, and it's just like, it's fantastic.
Many famous faces have walked through the doors over the years and perhaps walked out a little heavier. And the best thing about celebrating 90 years when you have a shop like this, no problem getting an anniversary cake, yet more proof you can have your cake and eat it too. Alan Rascal, 9 News.
Makes you hungry. All right, waddling down the aisle, a penguin has come bearing rings at a wedding in England. The distinguished guest, named Widget, following closely behind a bucket of fish as he carried the jewellery on a ribbon carefully tied around his neck. 3 other penguins were also in attendance, all dressed for the occasion. And I don't have the backstory, but it was, there you have it.
As long as need the facts. As long as they sealed the deal. That's the main thing, isn't it?
Oh, you don't want to seal there. That would end badly.
Yeah. Caroline Wilson is going to join us next as Richmond weighs up whether to rest Dusty or not. Also tonight in sport, sibling rivalry into overdrive as the twins match up. The AFL makes a call on Harley's rising star hopes. And, Waimana's told the critics to stay in their lane.
Incredibly fun, remarkably functional, and effortlessly stylish. Introducing the all-new Ford Puma. A compact SUV that really packs a punch. Looking good has never been this easy. Secure yours today. The all-new Ford Puma. Effortlessly stylish.
It's the matchup the AFL world's been waiting almost a decade for, and now Ben and Harry Mackay are finally set to play against each other. The Twins' long-awaited face-off will certainly add some extra spice to a Carlton-Essendon clash that's likely to be a record-breaker. Nathan Curry explains.
9 seasons in the making, Ben and Harry Mackay finally on the MCG turf at the same time.
Jokingly, I said before that it's probably been waiting for a bit of an occasion.
Today was a chance to help Beck Danaher promote the big freeze at the G, but come Sunday night, it's game on.
We'll definitely be spending some time with each other, no doubt.
I think Charlie's a bit too good for you. He'll probably kick 10, so maybe come to me.
The sibling rivalry particularly on show when asked about the new holding the ball interpretation.
And Ben doesn't lay too many tackles, so probably neither of us really. Did you?
Yeah. You obviously weren't watching very closely.
No. I just saw that barrel you tried with 2 minutes left.
We won't talk about that.
I'm not sure what you were thinking, but anyway.
Despite all the hype, we've been in this situation before. In 2019, Harry played while Ben wasn't selected for the Roos, but in 2020 he got a game while Harry was a late withdrawal. 2021 saw Harry miss again with a toe injury, while Ben was suspended in 2022 and was out with a foot injury last year. No wonder it led to speculation they were actually the same person, something the Mackay family played into.
Is it true you're not really a twin?
No comment. Ask Mum.
No comment. The mystery stays.
Even without the added theatre of the Mackay twins, Sunday night's game is going to be massive. Both teams are in premiership contention and general public tickets have already sold out.
I think the home and away record is 92,000 between the two clubs, so there's every chance that'll get smashed.
Now all that's left is to get through training and to figure out family arrangements.
Trying to organise a corporate box for the game, so...
I organise it.
Yeah, well, you did.
Nathan Curry, 9 News.
So good. Well, football's most talked about newbie, the Eagles' Harley Reid, will tomorrow night get his first taste of the tribunal. Trent Neese is getting in early at league headquarters. And Trent, the AFL's already made a call on whether the criteria should be changed for the Rising Star Award.
That's right, Tony. The league has tonight confirmed that they won't ever be changing any criteria regarding a player's eligibility to win the Rising Star Award. Laura Kane, the AFL's footy boss, says there's plenty of other awards for first-year players to win, but as for suspended players, well, they won't be able to win the Brownlow Medal or Rising Star. Now, it hasn't stopped the West Coast Eagles continuing their fight to challenge Harley Reid's too-much ban. They'll head to the tribunal tomorrow night, hoping to downgrade the ban. But here is Laura Kane on the Rising Star Award.
I can categorically rule out the eligibility criteria for Rising Star changing, so it won't be changing.
Meanwhile, there's been plenty of reaction to Melbourne's shock 92-point loss to Fremantle. Only a handful of players checked into club headquarters this morning, including Lachie Hunter, who appeared to tweak his calf in that match. A disappointed Max Gawn hit the radio waves earlier this morning.
I'm not worried about where we are in the ladder. I'm worried about how we're playing our football.
Yeah.
All year we've sort of been up and down.
On the injury front, Tom Liberatore and Ed Richards, well, they're both set to return for the Bulldogs clash against the Lions on Friday night, pending they both get through main training on Wednesday. And just finally, how's this for a contract extension? Giants defender Sam Taylor, he's just penned a deal to keep him at the club until 2032, joining Aaron Norton and Connor Rozee as the only other players around the league with deals that long. So, Tony, you could say it is a giant boost for the club's future.
Well, you could say that. In fact, you just did, Trent. Good work. 2032. I thought Tom and Alicia only had those contracts. Well, Richmond in the next couple of days will make the call on whether to rest Dusty Martin to allow his 300th game to be played at the MCG the following week. Caroline Wilson joins us, head of Footy Classified tonight. Caro, to rest or not to rest?
Look, I'm approving it, Tony, even though I'm not a fan of individual games over club interests, because it is a 5-day break, and I don't think they're keen on 5-day breaks at this point of the season. In fact, I don't think Dustin Martin will be the only player rested for the trip to the Adelaide Oval. Of course, there's every good reason for him to play his 300th on the MCG, but I think the 5-day break justifies it.
And so does that record that we just showed there. Hey, Cara, while I've got you, well, we ran a story a little earlier in the news. Kylie Rogers from the AFL, now at the VRC as the CEO. Big loss for the AFL.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a shock for Andrew Dillon and his team. So Travis Auld, the other losing contender for the Gillan McLaughlin replacement, has gone to Grand Prix. Of course, Brendan Gale knocked back a job to be a high-powered sort of number 2 at the AFL. He's going to Tasmania, and now Kylie Rogers is going. So Andrew Dillon really does need to bolster his team, and Kylie Rogers has promised to hang around and help him. We've also got some breaking news tonight on Footy Classified, Tony, regarding the Hawthorn Football Club.
We'll break it here.
I'll see you tonight on Footy Classified, Tony.
All right, good work.
You've broken enough stories today.
Thanks, Caro. All right, Caroline Wilson there, Footy Classified tonight with that breaking news at Hawthorn. A fiery Steve Monaghetti has defended Australia's Olympic selection process after a controversial omission from the marathon team. Despite running a slower time, Jess Stenson was picked over Lisa Waitman. But Monas says it's now time to move on. Clint Stanaway reports.
As a mum of 2, Jess Stenson has her hands full.
One more photo.
And she's had even more on her plate recently as debate raged about her place on Australia's Olympic team.
The last few weeks have been challenging, and it's really nice to be here today knowing exactly what we're preparing for.
Stenson was one of 6 Australian women to post an Olympic qualifying time. But here's the catch. There's only 3 spots on the team. Lisa Waitman actually ran a quicker time than Stenson, only to miss out on selection.
We're very supportive of the process, and it's difficult. You know, we've got 6 women qualified, which we've never had before.
The whole saga prompted an awkward online spat. Waitman's husband demanding Stenson remove this photo from her socials. And at today's team unveiling, Monas didn't want a bar of it.
We are just celebrating the athletes that we have here who are going to the Olympic Games in Paris to realise a dream. Enough said.
Understandably shattered, her Olympic dream cruelled, Waitman had threatened to take the matter to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, but she's now backtracked. That hopefully clears the way for a much smoother run into Paris.
Is it time for everyone to move on?
It is, yeah, look, training for a marathon takes a lot of energy and a lot of focus.
The team also includes Genevieve Gregson. She's making the switch from track to marathon after snapping her Achilles in the steeplechase in Tokyo.
People think I'm crazy to say it, but the marathon has been the easiest event I've ever done.
Clint Stanaway, 9 News.
Alex de Minaur takes aim at Daniil Medvedev tonight with a spot in the Roland Garros quarter-finals on the line. Australian Open champion Yannick Sinner again looks the man to beat. He accounted for his French opponent in 4 sets, moving him closer to the world #1 ranking. And it's pretty clear he's becoming a crowd favourite.
You did to Caro just then as well when she went whack.
No, she didn't. No, they're bigger whacks than that from Caro, I can tell you.
Nice work, Tony. Thank you. Lavinia is back now. Lavinia, we could see a bit of sunshine tomorrow.
Oh, Tom, definitely more than we saw today, but it is still expected to be quite cool. Then we've got a fairly consistent week of weather ahead. I'll have all the details next.
Switch on a Daikin Alira X split system with advanced streamer technology to remove more than 99% of harmful indoor air pollutants and surround yourself with cleaner air this summer. Daikin, perfecting the air.
Hello again. It's been a mostly cloudy but calm Monday. The city fell to 8.2 and under light southerly winds it peaked at 14.6. While overnight showers across Melbourne delivered less than a millimetre, there were significant totals in the far east of our state. Before 9 a.m, Mallacoota had 112 millimetres in the gauge, which is its wettest June day on record. It was also hit with damaging winds with a gust of 80 kilometres an hour recorded. Orbost had 51 millimetres of rain, combined bar 47. Melbourne's suburbs had a cool start to the working week. Werribee dipped to 4 degrees. Other suburbs dropped to 5, 6 or 7. Then the mercury really struggled at Ferny Creek with a maximum of 10 degrees. It mostly got to 13, 14 or 15 degrees elsewhere. Temperatures plummeted again across inland areas overnight. Horsham fell to -3, -1 at Rutherglen, and showers have continued through the state's east today, with Mallacoota recording another 12 millimetres. A low pressure system is sitting off the Gippsland coast, bringing those showers. Meanwhile, a cold front is moving east across the country. That system delivered destructive winds and heavy rain to southern WA over the weekend. But it is weakening, and tomorrow it'll dissipate before it reaches us. The low pressure system will also drift away over the Tasman, and while it will direct southerly winds over us, it will bring showers to Tasmania. Hobart can expect nothing more than a millimetre. It's heading for 16 degrees, 13 in Canberra after a chilly low of 0. Mostly sunny and 19 for Sydney, cloudy and 16 for Adelaide, and 22 degrees with breaks of sunshine for Perth. Back home, a frost warning is in place for the Wimmera district, and inland areas can expect patchy morning fog and frost with minimums of 2 or 3 degrees. Horsham is set to drop to 0, and Ballarat is only expected to climb to 11 degrees. Most other locations are heading for 13, 14 or 15. Orbost and Mallacoota should do a bit better, 16 degrees, and there's a chance of an isolated shower around the Bass Coast and Mornington Peninsula, but nothing more than a millimetre is forecast. It'll be a cool morning across Melbourne. 5 degrees at Avalon, Coldstream and Scoresby. Only 4 at Ferny Creek, and then it's only expected to peak at 9. Under partly cloudy skies and light winds, there'll be maximums of 13 and 14 degrees elsewhere. After a low of 5, Geelong is set to reach a top of 14 with breaks of sunshine. The city's also heading for 14 after a minimum of 7. A top of 15 on Wednesday with a chance of a light shower, partly cloudy, and 16 on Thursday. 16 again on Friday under grey skies, 15 on Saturday and Sunday with showers both days, and 14 degrees next Monday after a cool low of 6. We have a partly cloudy day in store tomorrow. After a low of 7 degrees, the city's set to reach 14 under light winds, and then the rest of the week is looking pretty consistent.
We are into winter, aren't we? Livinia, thank you. And that is 9 News this Monday. Ali is next with a current affair.
We hope you have a fantastic evening. For now, though, it's good night.